Hello, this is Walter Bradley in Heart Talk. On March 9th of 2013, I had the privilege of going with Greg Fernandez and Chris. We Are Change. They decided to invite me along to join them on a little investigatory that's a good word, investigatory tour of Forest Meadows in Murphys. Why? Well, we heard a story here back in February 9th, approximately on KCBS, about a man named Philip Marshall, Michaela, and Alex. They were two children, 14, 17, the daughter and son of Philip Marshall, former government employee. So the kids didn't show up at school Friday, February the 1st. So that's a big indicator already that probably January 31st, he was killed, or died, or they died.
You know, he heard two sounds Friday night.
Two sounds Friday night.
Two strange sounds Friday night.
Friday, but that would have been after the kids had not showed up, which would mean that they were probably dead 31st, and he heard strange noises. I walked up to one girl and I said, "Did you hear about the Philip Marshall?" I don't want to talk. Now, the one lady we did talk to that we have in common, she was just didn't feel comfortable with it at all, with how it turned out. And I've been up to Murphy's. I've been up there before. It's a great place. You can go shooting up there, have a good time. I went paddle boating at a lake that a friend of mine had his boat. We went out and stayed at a special park where he had his own little fifth wheel that's parked up there. You have a fire. Murphy's is one of the best places to live right now, but it's got one of the greatest mysteries cooking right now that you could ever imagine. And I hope it's not like the Kennedy masquerade, in which it goes, it was a magic bullet, he was shot from behind by Oswald, because we all know that's a lie. And one of the most important aspects that I saw in the house, and it's interesting to me, was how really accessible.
Yeah, that was
really accessible.
That was.
But from the street, totally hidden.
I think maybe we should do a little.
The only person I could picture that would write that would be the wife. Only person that had access here. The only person that making the decision to clear things out.
Where the house is here, you can see where Chris is, and beautiful houses. This one next door, and you can see the vast space here.
This is cool. Now, compared to the rest, his home seemed kind of plain, though. It was rather nondescript, gray.
It was green, actually.
Kind of greenish, grayish
gray.
view to me. That seemed very dull.
Yeah.
Nondescript and hidden. Now, that seemed appropriate based on his past, in my opinion. Nondescript, hidden, low, clear view out the back. Everybody has to come in to get in to see them. Everything is hidden from the front. I mean, you can't just look in and go, "Oh, there's people." You have to come down the driveway and look. It's covered patio or covered porch, and very discreet. And I don't think that whoever got in there was somebody that was not known to him. I think it would have been somebody, if it was anybody and not a murder-suicide, he would have known them because there was no noise. Either that or their stealth was perfect. So those are things that could be a possibility.
Yeah.
but we are looking at a possibility that maybe it was a murder-suicide. But what, in your opinion, points the other way?
Because of they don't have any proof for that simple fact. So
Well, one of the things to commit murder-suicide, there has to be a stress and a situation which says this, in their minds, was the best option. Or in their minds, they were striking out. Either this is the best option, I'm striking out at somebody. Was he angry at his wife? That's the first question. Angry, hateful, bitter?
didn't appear to be, because he was just with her. They took a trip to Turkey.
Try not to get my reflection in.
But we're nowhere, because all the evidence, whatever evidence is there, is not discussed. There's no pictures of the crime scene. Have anybody found any? That's the thing. Crime scenes have crime scene photos.
They had cleaned everything up by Sunday.
The Sunday after the
Super
murders?
Bowl Sunday. While everyone was watching the Super Bowl and all that crap.
You mean they cleaned out that whole place in one day? Right after the murders? That's another high red flag. Who cleaned it out?
The Calaveras County Sheriff's Office.
The sheriff's office cleaned it out. Why did they clean it out the day after?
They hired a cleaning crew to come in and clean it. Some local
But you don't do that after a murder or murder-suicide. You want to verify that it is exactly the way you think it is. Did they find shells, gun shells?
We don't know yet.
Because if
this
he
is
shot
what
the
we're
kids
waiting for.
and then he shot himself, the shells would be there. But there are no gun shells. They
I don't know.
vet
No,
them.
I don't know. We'll have to.
We don't
we'll
have.
to
There's a
see.
lot of answered questions based on what they say, but there's none regarding evidence that they found, or
They
pictures,
haven't- yeah, they
or
just haven't
the
told us.
autopsy.
They haven't told us much. So I just hope that they have a really strong case.
Well,
Because-
right now it looks to be a murder-suicide. However,
No, it doesn't.
the appearance that they're giving says murder-suicide. However, how they're treating it is totally interesting, to say the least. They clean up the day after. Everything's gone out of the house. We're there a month later, and there's a car sitting in the front, and there's some stuff inside.
Well, there's one box, but there was like a whole stack of boxes. And then the whole door, what they wrote on the door too, there was that.
I think that was a message to the killers. Love wins. And it's true. That we know. But it wasn't, I don't think it was eerie so much as a message to those, if they did do it, that will come to them. It's just the nature of the business. And the business of everybody who do such evil, if that was what was done.
I guess it just went over my
Be sure and know your sin will find you out. And we're not advocating that it was foul play or that any government entity did this. We're just looking at it. And that's simply the fact, because we can't go with what we don't know. We can only go with what we know. And at this point, there are just a lot of questions and a lot of questionable things, but doesn't indicate any wrongdoing. However, it does make things look very suspicious when the dog was shot. There is a comment, true or not, we haven't verified, that the children may have been trying to escape, or looked as though they may have been. And the questions about the veracity and the truth of the information regarding Philip Marshall and the events that occurred during that night, in which neighbors heard nothing except strange noises, which could not be identified, but it caused people to stop and look. And they couldn't identify it as being at Philip Marshall's or anywhere, but it was around that area. What were the noises? Does anybody know? Does anybody hear? Was anybody outside that heard the noises? Anybody that was around the golf course or driving or walking the path behind the Philip Marshall house? Did anybody see anybody, anything? We know that that is a gated community, and they have a guard there that checks names, license plates upon entry.
It's the only way in.
So it's the only way in and out, and if anybody came in that way and did anything, there's a record and there's a license plate. If they did not, they would come to an open area behind the house, which was vast and open, and could have been an easy path to the back of that house. It was not blocked, it was not protected in any way, and I don't know if he had any protective alarm services in there. What was told about that? Were there anything?
Did you
well,
see any?
not that you could see, but they could have been removed.
It's true.
There are things that are, with somebody with looking for security, it looks like, that if you were living in that community, you'd want to have it secure, especially if your back is facing wilderness. Not that anybody's going to be coming up from the wilderness to get you, but you have wild animals, you've got all kinds of things. And there are some people that live in the wilderness that you'd want to be particularly mindful of if they started wandering around communities like Forest Meadows. Beautiful community, wonderful houses there.
Ah, it smells good.
That's cute. I like how that's like
Or back here somewhere.
Be times when you feel like your ship is sunk, but in those times, look to a higher power. You'll make it through. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. I know you can do it. Yes, you will. Let your light shine. Don't let nobody put it out. Hold on to your fire. Let your light shine. Don't let those cold winds blow it out. Climb a little higher. Let your light shine. Even when you feel your head is underwater, don't let it go under. Let your light shine. You make it through it, yes you will.
impression, Greg, as I was getting the feel when you were up there the first time, what drove you to go back? What was the pull? It's actually a month exactly later.
Yeah, it's weird.
And
It wasn't timed like that, but it did happen.
exactly. And what's interesting is you wanted to go back. You wanted more information. You brought Chris
I
along.
felt something there. There's something very spiritual and very powerful.
Now, is that what drove you up there the first time?
No.
What took you up there?
No.
And
It had nothing to do with it.
So
Like,
you
that was
found
already planned. We had already planned on just going up there and tasting wine.
And I enjoyed doing that. You know, we were in Murphy's, and we were doing the wine tasting, going to Bryce Canyon, and we went to, the name of the establishment was called Forest Meadows. Was that correct? We entered there, we checked with the guard, and we didn't tell him we were in there to investigate Philip Marshall.
We were just hungry. We decided to go eat.
We were hungry, and we ate at the classic restaurant that they have at any golf course, probably like the 19th hole. And it's as busy as the 19th hole, as we found out, because nobody was there, and we were the only customers.
There was a few, like 2 or 3 other people.
Yes, but
stopped by.
after us. And what's interesting? What's interesting?
We were the
When we
first
began to talk about Philip Marshall, and when Chris did,
Mm-hmm.
the guy was all talkative about it, and then immediately caught himself and went into silent modes.
Really?
Did you notice this?
I
I
wasn't
did.
there because I had went to the bathroom.
Boy,
and
silly
then
excuse you offer.
Chris started talking. So tell me what Chris said to him. I'd like to get
Well, he
that.
asked, I kind of brought it up by saying, I noticed you had a bereavement thing going on. What was that about? And then he started talking about his kids knew, Philip Marshall's kids, Alex and Michaela. And I almost thought he was about to say, and mine were the ones who found them. So it had me listening going, is this the one? And I don't know. But I have a very solid feeling about this, that
I just got
it's
a creepy feel.
his children may have been the ones who found the bodies. And with that, I bid my condolences to those children who found him, and all the families in Forest Meadows who knew Philip Marshall, Michaela and Alex, and those who went to school with him at Bret Harte. We offer our condolences genuinely in the loss of such a valuable resident and wonderful family. And we offer condolences to his wife also in this great loss of her husband and 2 children. To lose all of them at once in such a horrid way is just one of the most atrocious tragedies that you could ever imagine to encounter. So we offer that up today and say that our prayers are with you, and we pray that healing can begin. But I'm Walter Bradley, and I'm rambling today, but I'm telling you, this Philip Marshall case doesn't look, hey, it's not kosher. And if it isn't kosher, that means it's dirty, it's unclean. We got to figure this out. Who knows what it will be, but we have people looking into it, and maybe we'll get some answers. We're looking for those, and we'll come back to you with Heart Talk, and We Are Changed with Mind, Body, Soul Productions. Thank you. This is Walter Bradley, and with Greg Fernandez, we are here for you. This is Heart Talk.